Welcome back to our look at the miniseries Charlie about former Taoiseach Charles Haughey. Today we're going to look at the episode GUBU, which first aired on the 11th of January 2015, so not that long ago really. So, where were we then? Well, 1. Haughey was out of power because he had lost the general election in June 1981. This was because he had delayed the call for general election until June after the Stardust fire, and in between that time the hunger strikes in the Mace prison in Northern Ireland had gone on, so the positive outlook that he had in February wasn't quite the same by June. Before I go on, I should explain about the two major parties in Ireland, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. These major parties aren't characterised by having a right-left divide. They are both centre-right parties with some minor differences. Traditionally, Fine Gael is a bit more conservative, while historically Fianna Fáil is in power more often. Haughey's government was followed by a coalition between Fine Gael and Labour. That government failed because they couldn't pass the budget, and the public weren't too happy with the fact they were placing VAT on children's shoes and clothes, which had never been a thing before. So this episode begins with the lumbering oaf from the previous episode, Brian Lenihan, coming in after being on the phone with the then President, Dr. Patrick Hillary. Lenihan had been trying to contact the President to try and persuade him not to allow Garret FitzGerald to dissolve the government, because if he said no, FitzGerald would have to resign and then Fianna Fáil would be in power. Lenihan actually scuppered his own presidential campaign in 1990 by denying that he had actually made any phone calls, which was strange considering he had not denied it previously. So a new government is elected, a minority Fianna Fáil government, and Haughey called in his would-be ministers to offer them their roles in the cabinet. And typical, he brings in two of his enemies just to basically show them the door. The first being George Colley, his previous deputy, or Taoiseach, and the second being Des O'Malley, both of whom have been Haughey's previous rivals for the leadership in '79. After making a speech about loyalty to Des O'Malley, he appoints Sean Doherty as Minister for Justice. Doherty is loyal, but as we'll see later on in the episode, he's loyal to a problem. The sad part is, as in real life, PJ Mara was sent off for the Senate, so we don't get very much of him in this episode, and that's kind of a bummer. As the episode and both Haughey's character are worse off for not having him there. Although the trade-off is we get young baby Bertie Ahern. Oh, look at him. Look at his little hair. Oh, look at it. And when baby Bertie grows up, he becomes Taoiseach, and then his daughter writes a book and it's called P.S. I Love You, and they make a film out of it and everything. This episode also introduces Tony Gregory, who was an independent TD that Haughey made a deal with in order to broker some support for his minority government. The Gregory deal was £100 million offered to renew inner city Dublin. Gregory acts as a counterpoint to Haughey because he's interested more in the people and helping them out, whereas Haughey's more interested in businesses and money. I think I should explain just what GUBU means. It's an acronym. It stands for Grotesque, Unbelievable, Bizarre, and Unprecedented. Haughey's administrations were so dogged with scandal that he would use those kind of words to describe these goings-on. It's a paraphrasing of comments Haughey made after the discovery that Malcolm MacArthur, a man who had murdered 2 people, had been staying with the Attorney General. In the episode, Haughey finds out about this after having a dinner with François Mitterrand, President of France, with whom he struck up a relationship after the ongoing issues he was having with Margaret Thatcher. Relations with Britain were frosty. The episode retells the sinking of the Srilaga, a trawler whose nets got caught in a British submarine and were dragged for 2 miles before the ship broke up. Naturally, the government of Ireland wasn't that pleased that a British submarine was dragging boats around off the coast of Ireland. But why was François Mitterrand hanging out with Charlie Haughey on Haughey's private island, Inishvikalon, which I've learned how to say, by the way? To talk about that, I've got to talk about the Iraqis for a second. That makes sense. It does. Believe me. Early in the episode, an Iraqi delegation comes up to Haughey and they say, "We want some of your Irish meat to feed our soldiers with." And Haughey says, yes. However, they want more meat than Ireland can produce under EU legislation, and Britain has a veto on all this kind of stuff. So as a way of getting around Thatcher, Haughey courts Mitterrand. Before all that, in the episode, Haughey tries to chat up Mitterrand's wife. Mitterrand turns up and they exchange, and then Brian Lenihan turns up and he's got some sandwiches because Brian Lenihan, sad trombone. But it is true to say that Mitterrand and Haughey did become friends in real life. And in the episode, they share the strangest scene in the entire thing. It involves eating a delicacy, a bird called an ortolan. In the episode, it sort of symbolizes the decadence and the greed of Haughey. And the most powerful image in the whole episode is when Haughey, who has to place a napkin over his head to eat this thing, raises his head up, and he's finished eating the bird, and there's a little trickle of blood just coming down his mouth. And that's when the phone call comes about Michael MacArthur and Patrick Connolly. It's one of the more powerful images in the series so far. So let's move on to talking about Sean Doherty. Firstly, his guarded brother-in-law was arrested for assault, but the key witness never turned up because he ended up being detained by the RUC, and the guarded solicitor was Sean Doherty's brother, and it was all rather convenient. Or as Alvin Jackson says in his book Ireland, the RUC helpfully detained the key witness. Later it was revealed that he had been tapping the phones of journalists. Now, his daughter is not that happy with the portrayal of him in the episode, and I suppose she has a point. He doesn't come out that well, but that's a problem you're going to run into when you're doing a show like this. Someone is always going to be unhappy. I mean, I make videos about this kind of stuff all the time. But the events that were depicted did actually happen, so you can't really complain about that. Much like in the case of Lenihan, the characterization is probably a bit off, but these things actually did happen. Haughey faces 2 votes of no confidence in this episode. One comes from his own party, and there's a 15-hour meeting which actually did happen where Haughey wins, and then there's a mass brawl afterwards, where at one point a man is getting beaten up so desperately that Des O'Malley grabs the sword that the Iraqis gave Haughey early in the episode and starts swinging it around to try and save the man's life. Surprisingly enough, this actually happened, although not quite like that, because apparently a lot of Haughey supporters have been drinking throughout the day, and then there was a fight, and a TD named Jim Gibbons was assaulted, and someone did come to his aid swinging a sword, apparently. Although I haven't been able to establish if that was Des O'Malley or not. But not surprisingly, by the end of 82, Haughey is out of government after a vote of no confidence from the entire government this time. This episode lives up to its title. I mean, it's got swords and submarines and murderers and phone tapping and a lot of crazy things that happened. A lot of them actually happened. I've been doing this long enough to know that, yes, when a film is made about a historical event or a TV show, there are going to be embellishments. But if they serve the drama, as they do here, then it works. Anyway, that was a lot of insane stuff that happened over the course of a year. GUBU indeed.